All right, everyone. So when we say the federal political institutions, we're including the legislative, executive, and judicial branch, and typically the federal bureaucracy is also included as part of the political institutions. So let's first start with Congress. Congress, or the legislative branch, is made up of two houses, therefore it's a bicameral legislature. And just some quick distinctive notes between the two houses. It's made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. The total membership of the Senate is set at 100 delegates, 2 from each state, and that number will only be altered with the addition of new states to the U.S. The total number of representatives in the House is 435, with a different number from each state, and this is determined based on population. The total number of representatives remains stable, but the distribution may vary. And the primary function of Congress is to write laws and approve the federal budget. However, the members of Congress also work for the good of their districts, and local approval is of particular importance to members of the House because of the frequency of elections, which, as you can see, happens every 2 years, as opposed to Senate terms, which are every 6 years. And so representatives to the House must be at least 25 years old, reside in their district, and have been a citizen for at least 7 years. And while these rules theoretically create a relatively open field for congressional participation, in reality, the demographics of Congress do not represent the population of the U.S. Congress is primarily made up of white men with significantly smaller percentages of women and racial minorities. Many representatives are lawyers by training, but others are well-off business people. Adequate income, social standing, and personal connections are key to a successful congressional campaign in today's world. And then on a practice test that I think it was Marika and I were looking at, it also might ask you, but less than 1/3, no, how was the question worded? The question was, which of the following was not true? And the fallacy in the question options where that 1/3 of Congress was non-Christian, that percent is much, much, much lower than 33%. So if you see that, just keep that in mind as well. So like Christian, white men, former lawyers or business people, well-to-do, well-off, highly educated, etc. That's really the makeup of who is in the House of Representatives. So in the Senate, you must be at least 30 years old, have been a citizen for 9 years, and then once you're elected, again, you serve for 6 years. And in early American history, senators were chosen by state legislatures, while the House of Representatives was directly elected by the people. And this changed with the 17th Amendment in 1913. And while this has changed, the Senate has retained a reputation as being less accessible and more politically oriented than the House. Like members of the House, senators are largely male and white. However, like representatives, they are also expected to represent their state and constituency. A senator from a rural state with significant agriculture land would be expected to serve the needs of farmers, even if he himself is wealthy and urban, just for example. And members of the House are elected by their congressional districts. Districts are altered every 10 years on the basis of the U.S. Census. And the state legislature redistricts the state as needed to equalize the population in each district. And the total number of representatives in districts remains the same from census to census. And the redistribution of congressional districts is called reapportionment. Some states may lose seats in this process while others gain seats or districts, as set out in the Reapportionment Act of 1929. Since the state legislature has power over this process, the majority party can alter the layout of districts to give themselves an advantage, called gerrymandering. While this is not considered to be a positive or ethical behavior, it is quite common. Gerrymandering is prevented in Iowa by the use of an independent commission to redistrict the state, and some counties in California have begun to experiment with citizen-led apportionment boards. States with a very small population, like Wyoming, have only a single congressional district, so gerrymandering wouldn't really apply. States send their senators and congresspeople to D.C., where they meet in the Capitol building, and the majority party in the House of Representatives appoints the Speaker of the House, and the Speaker presides over the House of Representatives, making committee appointments, and controls the agenda in the House. The House also includes majority and minority leaders. The majority leader works closely with the Speaker, while the minority leader opposes the Speaker of the House. Other upper-level members of the parties aid in the majority and minority leaders and are called majority and minority whips. The whips help to make certain that party members vote along party lines. Therefore, they got their name because they try to whip the votes. And other powerful positions in the House include the committee chairs, particularly the Ways and Means Committee, and power in the Senate is held by the majority and minority leaders as well as committee leaders. So let's look at powers real quick. So the powers of Congress are divided between the state and the House. This division was created to prevent any one house from gaining power and prominence and to preserve the bicameral legislature. The following powers require the input of both the House and the Senate, and these are particularly critical tasks for the government. These include taxation, borrowing of funds, regulating trade and commerce, naturalization law, military service, armed forces spending, the postal service, and federal court regulations. The two houses must also work together on any law that impacts their ability to govern. Specific powers that are granted to the House include initiating tax law, initiating spending bills, and initiating impeachment proceedings. The Senate must approve both taxation and spending bills, and the Senate has other powers separate from those of the House, and these include ratification of international treaties and approval of presidential nominations. And while Congress has these powers, it cannot violate the terms of the Constitution, and so can only apply punitive measures after a fair trial, apply export taxes, or punish people for crimes that were not illegal when they occurred, called ex post facto law. Now we're going to take a look at congressional committees. So much of the work of the House of Representatives is done with relatively small committees, often made up of smaller subcommittees. Standing committees are the most important. They manage various issues on a consistent basis. Joint committees include members of the House and the Senate working on issues including spending, taxation, and policy. Conference committees also include both House and Senate members. However, these work on particular laws, creating a consensus before the law is presented to the president. Select committees are created to manage a single issue or investigate a problem. These include both permanent and impermanent committees. Standing committees are permanent, while a conference committee might be quite short-lived. The committee discusses issues, plans the agenda, and moves laws through the legislature. Committees with the Senate are organized in similar ways and serve a similar function. Congressional committees may maintain close relationships with interest groups, government agencies, and bureaucracies. Called iron triangles, these interrelationships can be beneficial or cause additional difficulties in the government. The Congressional Committee improves funding or benefits for the bureaucracy or government agency, which offers contracts to a corporation or otherwise supports an interest group. The interest group lobbies committee members on behalf of the government agency or bureaucracy. While this can improve the legislation, funding, and government function, it can also lead to favoritism or poor decisions on the part of the committee. And now we're going to take a quick look at how Congress passes laws. This is a really complicated process, and if you haven't yet seen it, in the 1980s, sorry, teacher's car alarm is now going off. The TV show Schoolhouse Rock taught a generation of children how a bill becomes a law in the song "I'm Just a Bill." And again, I think this is on another page on my website, but it's written for children, the song is, but it's quite sophisticated and represents an accurate portrayal of the process by which a bill is created. So when a piece of legislation is proposed but not yet passed, it's just a bill. Bills can be written by anyone, but can only be proposed by a member of Congress. During a 2-year congressional term, more than 10,000 bills will be introduced. Around 5% of that number will become laws. The remainder will die in committees. There are both public and private bills. However, private bills designed to meet the needs of a relatively small group of individuals are quite uncommon now. And professional lobbyists, members of the executive branch, and other legislators may all influence which bill reaches the floor. Resolutions express an opinion or change procedures. So resolutions may concern minor public issues or more significant internal issues. Joint resolutions are passed by the House and the Senate and become law without a presidential signature. Concurrent resolutions involve both the House and the Senate, but do not become a law. Bills are assigned a number and a descriptive title by a congressional clerk. The Speaker of the House assigns the bill to a committee. The committee moves the bill to a subcommittee and may hold hearings or add amendments to the bill. The subcommittee may approve the bill and send it back to the committee. It may not find value in the bill and refuse to send it back to the committee. This is the fate of most bills unless a legislator is actively working for the passage of the bill. A bill stuck in committee is considered to be pigeonholed. Bills can be forced out of committee and brought before Congress by a vote by a discharge petition. If passed by the full committee, the bill moves from committee to the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee then assigns rules to the bill, including general guidelines for debate and amendments. The Rules Committee may also decline to add rules, killing the bill before it reaches the House floor. The members of the House become the Committee of the Whole to move a bill to the House floor. The Committee of the Whole requires only 100 members in session. Once passed by the committee, it moves into the House as a whole for passage, not package. The House votes in one of several ways. It can vote by a simple voice vote, yea or nay, decided by the Speaker. If someone disagrees with the Speaker's verdict, a standing vote is taken and counted. As an alternative, the House can vote by walking past tellers with yea votes going first. Electronic voting is now also used and is the most common option. Today, electronic voting is a form of the roll call vote. Each member votes with all members' names and votes recorded. If approved, the bill moves from the House to the Senate and goes through a similar committee process and vote. The Senate does not have a Rules Committee and may add as many amendments as it likes. Debates may last indefinitely in the Senate, creating the filibuster to kill a bill. Procedures are similar, but roll call voting is conducted out loud rather than electronically. And when the Senate approves a bill, it goes to the Conference Committee. In the Conference Committee, the House and the Senate agree upon the terms of the bill. Both houses must then approve the bill before it goes to the President for approval or veto. Once the bill leaves Congress, it goes to the President. The executive branch is responsible for this phase of the lawmaking process. The bill is still, at this time, not a law. The President has several options at this time. In many cases, the President has played a role through influence in the political party in designing significant or important pieces of legislation. First option, he or she, oh that's cute, he or she, okay, I'm just going to say he to save us time. He can sign the bill, making it a law. He can veto the bill. If the bill is vetoed, it returns to the House or the Senate with an explanation for the veto. Congress can override a presidential veto with a 2/3 majority. However, this is uncommon and presidential vetoes usually stand. If there are at least 10 days remaining in the legislative session, the President can allow the bill to become a law by refusing to either sign or veto it. When there are less than 10 days left in the current presidential session, the President can use a pocket veto as above. The pocket veto requires that the President do nothing. If the bill is not signed and less than 10 days remain, it does not become a law. Allowing a bill to become a law without a signature or using pocket veto provides the President some distance from a controversial or unpopular bill. For instance, the President might allow new tax increases to pass without signing them if he campaigned on a promise of reduced taxes. While the taxes were passed, he did not directly involve himself in this. The legislature and the President play significant roles in this process, but the judiciary still has a say. Laws can be subject to judicial review. Judicial review allows the court to nullify the decisions of the Congress and President. In one recent case, the Affordable Care Act went before the U.S. Supreme Court. The court found the law to be valid and allowed its implementation. Most laws have undergone careful review and are not found to be unconstitutional or are found to be constitutional. Get rid of that double negative.